Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Sunday Night Breakdown. Daniel Ratledge and Dave Forrester with you to go back through all the action in the British Basketball League. Any Panto-related action before we get underway, Dave?
No, there were a couple of times I thought the ball handlers were a little bit lacking in care, particularly when there were people behind them. But apart from that, no. Customs House South Shields, best Panto in the land.
There we go.
Sponsored by Forrester.
Yeah, that's the plug done. European game, another week, another win for the Lions, comfortable against Wolves of Vilnius. Did you see it?
I saw bits of it. I don't remember much of it other than thinking, yes, it was quite comfortable, and Olaseni was very good, and Morgan was on fire. Conor Morgan. And yeah, they've got a comfort level playing in Europe with it, and they had the whole group playing, I think. I'm not sure if Decker played, but I can't remember, to be honest. It's a long time ago. But they looked really comfortable.
He did play. I can't remember. I think it was about 15 minutes, but he did play. Let's go to the British Basketball League action, of which there wasn't loads, but there was plenty of drama over the weekend, wasn't there? Let's start on Thursday. Caledonia Gladiators 85, Bristol Flyers 82. Obviously, they'd released Jovicic ahead of the game. Basically one shot between them in the first quarter. There wasn't really anything in this. I
don't like to say I told you so, but I do like to say I told you so.
You did, yeah.
I've been saying about Jovicic for a while. He just didn't quite fit, and I actually think that Gareth did everything he could to try to make him fit. But eventually you got to produce, and particularly if you're an import, particularly if you've got guys like him in this and potentially Bunyan playing behind you. There's not that much of a drop off. There has to be a substantial drop off between an import, Jovicic, and someone like him in this. I'm not sure there was. So. Yeah, I think that was a call that they had to make, and obviously it results in addition by subtraction, which is more minutes for Whelan in the short term and more minutes for DeBose, and that helps them because they're the more productive players. Bristol still kind of navigating their way through the kind of the year. They're given the choice Thursday night slot in East Kilbride. Not quite as far as Plymouth, but still, I mean, it's a nonsense, really. I just don't get. You're going to send a team 400 miles north on a Thursday, and they're going to have to come back down south and play on a Saturday. I'm just, I know Thursdays help space the league and help us watch all the games and all of that stuff. But from a competitive point, I'm not necessarily convinced yet, and certainly I'm not sure the good burgers of East Kilbride are convinced because of that many of them seem to come out. So we'll see where that goes. In relation to the game, it's a while ago now, and there's lots of good stuff happened since. Need you to help us a little bit.
So a 17-5 run in the second quarter had Bristol. Jacob had 8 of them. Bristol out to a 41-49 lead.
41-46 lead, Dan, because what happened on the buzzer?
Well, we haven't got that far yet. What happened? What happened was they didn't make a shot on the buzzer. That's what happened.
They didn't take a shot.
It didn't mean it goes in.
4 seconds before that, Trajan Jacob had made a shot on the buzzer, but it appeared that Andreas had called the timeout. Which meant that, but because they have this is kind of a forestierial annoyance. Air horns in the crowd. Just no way. The horn is just like a whistle. It's part of the accompaniment of basketball. It's part of the game. What you see on the TV is when the foul shot is made, you see 3 fans blowing their horns. Well, the game continues. Obviously, the table is also blowing a horn because they haven't started the clock, but no one can hear the table's horn. The fans' horns are blowing.
Yeah, but to me, there's nothing wrong with that. In the old days of an air horn where it ran out of gas, which still happens in the modern game every now and then, they didn't hear it. The table didn't run the clock, so no harm, no foul, as far as I can see.
Except Trajan Jacob makes a great shot on the buzzer.
Well, that's not his fault. That's the coach's fault, isn't it? For calling
they did what it is. The only thing I'll say about it, and I didn't figure it out at the beginning, is that the coach wasn't shouting for a timeout when it wasn't called. Andreas wasn't shouting at the table saying, "Where's my timeout?" So it was all a little bit confusing. Clearly too confusing for your producers who realised what had happened. Bang, something happened on the buzzer, but they didn't score. So 41-46.
Well, those of us who watched it, I was doing EuroLeague on Thursday night.
Right.
So those of us who watched it back on Saturday saw it all.
Did you?
Yeah,
was it in with it,
because the adverts that you see in real time are sort of almost like superimposed over the top.
Right, I got you.
And what's hidden behind it, more often than not, is a shot of the court. So I saw Brad Green miss a 16-foot jump shot.
Well, I'm delighted because that spoiled my weekend.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah,
I didn't see it.
Go back, you can watch it.
I would.
Yeah. So let's go into the second half. Almost some wheeling with some threes to end the third quarter. Got it back to a point. Should we get to the end because there's a lot to go
should we just get to the obviously we're still on the Onwas suspension watch.
Oh yeah.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah. There's a long way to go till May.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So let's get to the end. Jackson with the and 1, 2:25 to go, ties the game at 80, and then 2 minutes to go. Bit of a nothing play, I thought, from the Caledonia Gladiators, and yet somehow DeBose hits a shot at the end of the shot clock for 380.
Yeah, he's a step back guy, DeBose, and there's a few in the league, and we're going to talk about a few of them today, who the percentages in theory are in your favor if you're making him shoot a tough shot off the dribble, stepping back. But in fact, it's not good defense because they're the shots that they're looking to take and make. It's the old James Harden thing where everybody does what James Harden does now, whereby, him stepping back and making a tough 3-point shot once was like, whoa, what a shot, fantastic. When he's done it 100 times, it's like, oh, okay, we're going to make you do something different. And the attention to DeBose in particular, particularly on his left hand, is that he's looking a step back as much as he is looking to go forward. And he has this kind of nice release, this kind of line drive release, which makes you think it's kind of going in. He didn't make many shots in this game, to be absolutely fair. And Bristol actually really were very competitive in this game. I was really quite impressed with them. I thought that their competitive spirit, that it's Thursday night in East Kilbride, there's still they're a guy down at least. I thought they really got into Caledonia and gave themselves a shot at winning. But these games are more and more, as we're watching them, being won in the last 2 minutes.
Yeah. So Ali Hodgetts with a clumsy foul. Jackson makes 2 free throws, 83-82. Green commits a foul at the other end of the floor with 1:29 to go, but it was on the floor. They weren't over the limit. Paliza missed the 3. Onwas tipped out the rebound. Then Onwas misses an open 3. And you think they've got a bit lucky there that one of those would normally go in. Jacob then threw a pass that was too strong to Green and turns it over. And then Green fouls Onwas. Paliza misses the 3. Bristol get it back. About 30 seconds left. Down 1. This is the sort of position you want to be in, really, isn't it?
Well, on the road, you can't really ask for much more. Bristol obviously have this. It's tough losing your point guard 6 weeks in for an injury, which is a 6-week injury. In many ways, if you're going to lose your point guard, you prefer to lose him for the season. That sounds horrendously hard on Tejon Lucas. I'm not suggesting I wanted Tejon Lucas to be injured for the season, but from a coaching perspective, it makes it difficult. Any other position, you plug and play guys, and you do it and you fit it in. But the point guard position is the difficult one because the point guard has to be in sync with everybody else, and the point guard is basically been the announcements have been. They've still got an import space spare, so they could sign them both and have Jackson and Lucas if they wanted. And it might be they go down that route because Samuels hasn't really pulled up any trees and playing behind them and getting that kind of extra minutes. But what it means is that, 4 or 5 games in, Jackson is pulling the strings. And that's kind of tough on the dynamic with everybody else, particularly when Ollison and Jacob have been getting used to playing with Lucas. And it kind of demonstrated itself in this game because their offense that they ran was basically Jackson dribbling the ball.
Yeah, there was I've written a lot of dribble.
Yeah, well, what he did was they ran the horns, but he never got them into anything. And he tried to make it's tough sometimes. You can't get him into anything. You played for 5 games, you don't know everybody's tendencies. You've not been in a last possession situation where the ball's been in your hands, and suddenly, the ball is in your hands, and who's going to get the shot? And in the end, nobody got it because he dribbled, and then they switched on stuff, took the ball out of his hands, and then he penetrated, and he was going nowhere. And I thought it was a pretty good call on the tie up, to be honest.
Yeah. The Bows wrapped him up, so it was a jump ball with 9.1 seconds to go. Bring back the jump ball, by the way. I'm just going to say it again. It would just be a better way to finish that game than.
Well, it might be, but I saw a jump ball at Newcastle, Surrey on Friday night, where the ball actually didn't get an inch out of the referee's hands.
Yeah.
So I'm less.
But if they do it more often, it's just because they don't do it very often.
I also saw, Chris Dodds look at John Paul Herron like, what just happened? And they all went, it was a bit too early in the game. So I'm less convinced as to the fun that arises from the pushing, shoving, arguing over who's standing where, and then trusting a referee to throw the ball up straight kind of thing in jump balls. But anyway, move on.
So it's a possession to Caledonia, timeout, no advance, still 1 foul to give. The Bows breaks away. They throw it to him. He gets away from them, and he's running time off the clock. And then just as it looks like they're about to get the ball, knocked away by Ollison. He's off and running. That's a layup, and he wins the game, by the way. But a foul is called. Andreas is right in front of him. Andreas cannot believe a foul has been called with 5 seconds to go.
Yes, the problem there was a foul.
There was a foul. If you look at it from the baseline angle, because you can't see it from the main camera, you just think, he's stolen away.
Jackson. I think it was Jackson.
Jackson basically just grabs him. It
took the foul, and it wouldn't have impacted Ollison's theft of the ball.
No.
Certainly, they might have had a couple of seconds to get something back, Caledonia, but that would have been the game-winning play. But ref has to call that. It was just a timing thing. If Ollison had been there a second earlier, Jackson wouldn't have fouled him and they're away. But just that way, I understand why they were frustrated, but upset about, if that makes any sense.
No, it was definitely a foul when you look at it from the baseline. Inbound again, they managed to lose some time, so it was actually 2.8 seconds left. So in the end, they lost 7 seconds for 2 fouls. DeBose makes 2 free throws, 85-82, timeout advance. It's into Green, a handoff to Jackson. He was miles out and he misses the 3.
Yeah, again, I was interested about that, because firstly, I'm surprised you were down 3, right? So I'm a little bit surprised Green was in the game. Because Green, I know Green's in the game, you throw him to and he hands it off and sets a screen for somebody. So that's the plan. But it doesn't give you much in the way of options. If you have Smith in the game, maybe he can space a little bit more. Banking a 3, exactly. Or space a bit more, or not even Smith, you can go 5 guards or whatever. Secondly, having Jackson be the one, it's Olsen's team that is Olsen's team, the way the team has started. I think you would say that. Jacobs come off the bench, he's been injured a little bit, up and down. Everybody else does their thing, but when they need a bit of a spark, it's generally Ollison. So I'm surprised. So again, that's what I'm talking about with the thing about having a new point guard, having a new guy in now. Suddenly he's got the ball for 30 seconds at the end of the game. He gets the ball at the end there. So how does that impact the dynamic with Ollison and Jacob, etc.? The other thing was on that play, they missed Jacob early. Jacob ran the baseline. Now, if there's anybody in this league who I want to make a kind of a fadeaway, fall away nonsense shot on the buzzer, which no reasonable player is going to make, it's Trajan Jacob. We saw it in another game this week, but more than that, he has that ability to, he makes tough threes because he can't block his shot because he goes up high. He's left-handed, he kind of slingshots it from behind him. And they ran him off the baseline and didn't throw him the ball. And I would have been quite frustrated by that because he could catch the ball and shoot it within a nanosecond, he could make it. So I didn't think they got their end of game execution right. But it's small margins, half a second earlier than with Ollison, and that's a layup, and they win the game. And we're all saying what a great decision it was not to foul. Albeit I do think they actually fouled, the ref didn't call one. And instead, they kind of just fizzled away. But Caledonia are clearly, they're better for having, most teams are going to be better for having less players at this point in the season now. They need to have they can't be carrying anybody. Everybody has to produce now. There are very few teams in the league who can put guys on the court who aren't at the right level. and get away with it.
Yeah. Ali Hodgic, 7 of 8 for 17 points. Belisa, 17 points. Whelan, 14 points, 7 assists. Graham Bell, 6 of 7 for 18 points. Jacob, 16 points, 4 assists. Green, 14. Friday night, Newcastle Eagles, 88. Surrey Scorchers, 93. Cooper was back. Gooden was back. Hunt was out. Robinson was starting. I think that's everybody.
The young lad whose name I can't pronounce, he was playing as well.
Okasiemi, I think it is. I'd need to see it written down, but I think that's it.
Just testing you.
The Surrey turning the ball all over the shop. I thought Newcastle could have got away in the first quarter, but they never got more than 6-point lead.
Yeah, I thought there was a mental letdown for Newcastle in this game, and that's absolutely not to denigrate Surrey at all. But I thought it was the combination of a team that's won 7 in a row and a team that's just beaten the team that they're playing on Sunday. And I don't think at any point they played with the necessary intensity halfway through the third quarter. They committed 3 fouls, and Lloyd wasn't really complaining much about non-fouls being called. They were playing I thought they were pretty passive, basically outside of Darius throughout the game. And you're right. I think early on, to a certain degree, Surrey were there to be taken because Surrey are bouncing people around. Cooper was playing, but he didn't look that healthy. Didn't impact the game. Whitfield went at them later on. They have obviously missing Hunt, who's a critical player for them, meant that they had Bailey and Okasini in their rotation. And I actually liked what Lloyd did with the young lad because he put him in a rotation after about 5 minutes, which means he got to play a little bit. He got a dunk off an Andrew Lawrence pass. He made a little post move. He got beaten a bit defensively, but he got into the rhythm of it. So he's been given meaningful minutes, not kind of a minute and a half at the end of a quarter. And that, I think, it's interesting that, Dan Clark travelled all the way up, and obviously Dan Clark's very big on GB and the GB program and trying to promote young players as well. And so seeing even only playing 4.5, 5 minutes, is good because it goes down. And in theory, you've got a kid there who's got enough athleticism to be on the court, and it's very, very raw. But they're looking at developing him. And and Newcastle were just I thought devoid of any appropriate fear for the game. My impression was looking at them that they didn't think they were going to lose.
Yeah, and sorry.
My impression was watching the game that they were going to lose. Yeah. That's
in the middle quarters. Surrey hit enough threes to stick in it. It was fairly tight in the.
Well, yeah, it's the thing. I mean, I was actually in the corporate area hitting the prawn sandwiches, and Mark comes up and does his pre-game talk for the sponsors about 25 minutes before. And he talked about how, Surrey made 13 threes in the last game, and that was too many. And, we know we've got to defend the 3-point line. He knew they had to defend the 3-point line, but I'm afraid his players didn't understand, particularly that Justin Robinson is an elite 3-point shooter from the triple threat position. And there's probably a reason for that because they've not seen it. Because, Jordan Johnson was in the league 2 years ago, and Justin, I don't think he was at his highest level then. I think maybe, he was injured most of that season. Ricky McGill again, a couple of years ago, and Larry Austin the same. So, players, don't matter how much the coach tells you, the players don't believe it until they see it. And they got absolutely hammered by an absolute elite performance from Justin Robinson, doing everything that he's always good, scoring 26 points on 11 shots. On 15 shots with, 6 threes. And it was just a little bit like the Bows. They were the open ones, they were step back ones. And I didn't think Newcastle really had any capability of using the fact that Surrey didn't have a recognisable role man. They had Jameson playing, but if you throw the ball at Jameson, then Jameson's not going to beat you. Justin's going to beat you, And then the other guys, it was Bailey, or they were playing small. And I was thinking, mate, I thought the whole game they let Lawrence and Robinson just dictate the basketball game. They let them go where they wanted to go. They didn't take the ball out of their hands. They didn't make other guys make a play, and they gave up 15 threes. So they got beaten every which way, basically. But yeah, in relation to and Robinson did what McGill did on Sunday, basically just got hot and was clearly smarting at the fact that McGill had done that on his court, so he comes up to McGill's court and does the same. That's what it's what winners do. And what I said a while ago about Surrey was, who are the winners? Well, starting Robinson helps them massively because Robinson's a winner, and then he can carry the rest of them along with that. It's easier to do that when you're starting and you can set the tone for what you want. Sorry, I've gone on a bit about.
So 7 unanswered points. We'll just spin it forward. 7 unanswered points had Surrey ahead at the end of the third quarter. Newcastle a 15-6 spell to make it 82-78 with 3 minutes to go. Delpesh misses a couple of.
They got a stop. Delpesh got a rebound, missed 2 foul shots.
I thought that was pivotal there because that would have taken it out to 6 at that point.
But it was pivotal, and I think that I think the whole fourth quarter, Newcastle, Mark wasn't really sure what his lineup needed to be because he's got Austin back, and he ran, and Whitfield made some plays, so he was playing it. He was in. And Ward Hibbert was struggling, but Ward Hibbert was probably the most solid defender of all of them. But he was like 1 of 8, 3 points, 5 fouls. So Green didn't play the fourth quarter, and then Defoe didn't come back in, which surprised me. But then I know that I see Darius was actually at the table with for the TV timeout, and I think he waved Mark off because Delpesh had just made a couple of plays and said, "No, let him go. He's playing," But ultimately, their defensive integrity disappeared down the stretch, and that was, I think, partly because. Certainly because Defoe wasn't in the game, and potentially they missed Green's energy as well, given that Ward Hibbert wasn't able to give them much offense. Surrey, however, they move. They're a pretty when they get to run the patterns they want to run. They're a really nice team to watch because Robinson and Lawrence are what you describe as smooth. Then every movement is where you want it to go. Every movement is deliberate. There's nothing out of control. And they got enough out of everybody else, shooting-wise, to give them a shot in the game. And then it comes down, like most of these games have this weekend, as to who executes over the last 3 minutes.
So Lawrence, 2 free throws, 82-80. Delpesh at the basket, 84-80. Jameson, second attempt, 84-82. Johnson, 1 of 2 free throws, 85-82.
That's 3 missed foul shots by Newcastle.
Yeah. Then there's, in a minute, then there's 2 minutes to go. Teo in the corner, 85-85. Sure, that wasn't very high on the scout report. Ward Hibbert misses
the left corner as well.
Yeah. Ward Hibbert misses a corner 3, and then Wang almost turned it over, but in the end they get the ball to Teo in the corner, and he does it again, 88-85.
This is what I'm talking about. Lack of, for every. I mean, that was. They're basically Lawrence's 2 foul shots was because Delpesh wasn't far enough across to see him. So Delpesh was late, and therefore Lawrence was able to get to his right hand and drive and got the foul. That's what Lawrence does. Then the 2 threes from Teo were because of penetration, I think, and smart passes, and just not having the appropriate fear of the fact that who stood in the corner. You make Jameson or whoever, you make him make a layup to beat you. You don't let Teo shoot a 3. And they gave up because they gave up the middle, and then they were kind of scrambling, but not scrambling well enough. It was just a lack of mental attention to detail, I thought, and excellent execution from Surrey on the other end. And so Surrey got now. Then I think Newcastle called Newcastle called a timeout, I think, and they came out.
And then McGill missed a corner 3.
Well, he missed the corner 3, but that would they came out, and Surrey, and this is something I'll be asked about, and so I'm going to go into a little bit of detail on it. Surrey came out in a 3-2 zone again, which I thought was a great move from the coach, because it's a few cojones being shown there to come out in up 3 with a minute and a half to go. It'll come out in a 3-2 zone. But for the most of the game, Newcastle had approached the 3-2 zone like it was, some form of ancient Egyptian language. Just no recognition of it at all. And so, which is kind of concerning because they played against it on Sunday, but on Sunday they made shots, made some tough shots. So why does Surrey's 3-2 zone work? Because I was asked this question and by one of your colleagues. And basically, it's a really quite an interesting little thing that they run because they've run it a few times in a few games this year, but they stick Wang in the middle at the top. And there are 2 types of zone, 2 types of 3-2 zone. There's a 3-2 zone and a 1-2-2 zone. Yeah. A 1-2-2 is where you're almost like in a kind of a trapezium kind of shape. Your guy comes out at the top. He's at the point of the triangle. And you can trap if the ball goes to the corners, and it's kind of aggressive defense. But what it does do is leave space in the middle. And the weakness of a 3-2 zone is in two places. Every defense has weaknesses. The weakness is at the foul line, underneath, behind where Wang is, and in the corners. Because there's just no way that the two guys on the baseline can defend the corner and the basket. So the key to beating it is that you have to get the ball below the level of the three players. Now, what Surrey do is the two guys on the wing are really high. So they're not letting you have easy entries to the wing. So you can throw it down to the corner. They're really high. And they put Wang at the top because Wang's got long arms, which means it's tough to throw the cross-court pass from the wing, from the top to the corner. So what are they giving up? Well, they're giving up the guy who's got no conscience at all. So they're giving up Matt Morgan, walking down the court and pulling up, because Wang's on the foul line, basically. So they're giving up Matt Morgan, walking into a three-point shot, or somebody like that, walking into a three-point shot.
To me, it looks like a football setup. With them in banks of a 3 and a 2 sort of thing.
3 and 2, that's right. And what they're doing is they're saying you can have that shot at the top. Because Paddy, it's going to come out, put his hand, it's going to make it tough. And that's not a shot players are used to shooting. And generally players make shots when they're comfortable shooting them, when the coach is happy with them, right? So Newcastle didn't shoot those shots. They dribbled the ball a lot and then ended up shooting some worse shots, okay? But what Newcastle weren't able to do was to get the ball below the level of the foul line. And that was because of the pressure at the top, because of the length of Wang, and because they weren't smart enough, to be blunt. If they can get the ball to the wing and get it into the what we call the high post, which is a foul line extended, that's a basket. That's 3-on-2, 4-on-2. You're taking 3 of the opposition players out of the game. If they can get the ball down to the corner, the whole defense has to shift down. And then because the wing guy has to shift down, the center guy has to shift down, the bottom guy has to come across, and then you can kick it back out to the top for a kick out 3. And they never got the ball to the middle, and they never got the ball to the corner. And so he recognized that. And that 3-point shot from McGill, the ball got to the corner, but it got there late, and it was kind of it wasn't a great look.
No.
It wasn't a great look. And you can get better. And Newcastle and they weren't able to rebound out of it either. So that's kind of the thing. It's just like every defense. You can beat it if you figure it out. But you have to have the right bodies on the court, have the right mindset, and they have to be there doing it. And so changing that was probably the biggest play of the game, not even Theo's 2 threes. Because if Newcastle score on that possession, then anything could have happened. But the air's going out of the building at that point, because they've given up a 4-point lead. They've missed 3 foul shots. They're doing things that they've done earlier on in the season to throw games away that they could have won. And now the pressure is there on them, and you come out in that zone and you win the bet, basically. So he won the bet on that possession. And one possession can be all that matters.
Well, what happens next is Robertson comes off a couple of screens, misses a 3 at the top, but Teo gets an offensive rebound and makes a free throw. And now you're into the thing of where Newcastle are actually chasing it.
Yeah, and that was understood. Again, every play down the stretch. Sorry, mate. Newcastle, as you said, Newcastle are up forward 2 foul shots with 3 minutes to go. Yeah, and yet by the time we get with a minute to go, the game is done.
Yeah,
I mean that's a meltdown. I think primarily they didn't necessarily have the right bodies on the court at that time. They needed to fall on the court, whether Darius thought Malcolm should have been playing or whatever. They needed him on the court. He had 15 points on 7 shots. He was impactful defensively. He wasn't. So it's a growing pain for the team, but it's also indicative of, Surrey developing something. And we talked about it maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago about how they were probably looking better than they ever had. And I'd like to think that that's without the benefit of hindsight, because they weren't really winning at that point.
No, they weren't.
But the kind of the understanding of what they are, they are now playing to what they are. And I thought defensively, they packed the paint really, really well. I thought offensively, the ball went where it was meant to go. I thought it was allowed to. I thought if I'm looking at that team and I look at the stat sheet at the end, and Justin Robinson and Andrew Lawrence have shot 35% 40% of the shots, then I'm thinking, what is going on?
Mm.
You know, wouldn't matter whether they make them or not. Those two guys are not shooting 40% of the shots. They only played about 45 minutes between them.
Mm.
You know, I'm making some of these other guys beat us. And Newcastle didn't. I'm making Bailey beat you. I'm making Jameson beat you. And they didn't. You know, the reality is, you know, Surrey are going to struggle to score enough twos to beat any team. But if they get warm at the 3-point line and teams aren't locked into them, then 3-point shooting variance is a massive thing. And they have some of the best 3-point shooters going.
Mm.
Theo in the corner, Justin anywhere, and Justin made some tough shots, but he made some tough shots because he made some early ones, and he got his head in. His head was really in the game. Andrew Lawrence from anywhere, Quinn Cooper from anywhere. You know, these are guys you just cannot. And Josh Steele, that's 5 elite 3-point shooters. And Newcastle had no fear of them, and they should have. Is that fair?
Yeah, that is very fair. Yeah, I wouldn't have any arguments with that. McGill 18.7 assists, Defoe 15.6 or 7 of shooting, Green 15 points, Robinson 6 of 11 for 3, 26 points, Lawrence 14 points, Teo had 9 points. He was made 2 threes, and he was a plus 17.
Well, to be fair to Teo, in this game, yeah, he made the 2 corner threes. That's fine, but he did make a couple of, you know, kind of roll back the years, kind of hustle plays under the basket, getting his hand on loose balls, that type of stuff. Which sometimes you don't see out of him where he's not put in a position to do. And I just thought he was impactful, and those numbers don't surprise me, because he spaces the court for them. He was impactful, made a couple of plays offensively at the basket, and yeah, they just came in more focused. They played harder. They committed more fouls, but that's because they wanted to win. I just got the impression that they were more. I hate the phrase "want to win" because everybody always wants to win. They wanted it more. I don't get that, but they played with more urgency. And as I say, whereas Newcastle played like a team that had won 7 in a row and thought that they could hold it in kind of 4th gear until they needed to, and that's not going to get it done in this league.
Nope. And it didn't. So let's go to the other game. Leicester Riders 79, London Lions 89. Decker was back. They were close to full strength here. London. Sholawadi was out.
Rob must have pinched the old Christmas fairy on the backside, mustn't he?
Yeah.
Delighted with that, yeah.
Solawadi, Kaboza, and Uday is probably the if you line them up from 1 to however many players they've got, the lowest or the highest combination that they've had out this season, I should imagine. The Morgans were hitting threes, Quealy as well. London out to an early lead, looking comfortable, and then they forgot about Connor Washington. He comes in, makes 3 threes, and
so we just rewind. So we just rewind to last week, and then the week before, and then last season, and the last season before. It's kind of frustrating because it gives me the impression that no one ever listens to this. Or no one really cares. Yeah, well, Connor came in, he made some shots, and players don't believe it until they see it. No matter how much times we talk about it. And that is, to my mind, as a fan stroke agitator stroke once a coach, totally incredible. Listen to what you're told, just like Justin Robinson, listen to what you're told, listen to the plan. So Connor made some shots, but I mean, to be fair, I've only watched the first half of this game because I wasn't up straight away when I got in from Newcastle on Friday night, and I didn't get the chance to catch up with it. After that, just watched the first half. But the thing that kind of came across to me was that Leicester retained their competitiveness, right? They have a mindset amongst the players that they still have, that they can compete with anyone. They struggle when they go, further than 7 deep, probably. Nduku played a little bit in this game. It's a bit of an overmatch for him, to be fair, at this point in his career. And Russell.
Russell was much better in the second half, to be fair.
Yeah, Russell, but you pointed out, I think, that he played for Billy Mims at Florida Tech. You tell me, playing for Billy Mims and playing for Rob Paternostro, I think
wouldn't. I wouldn't have. Yeah, wouldn't have
are two rather separate things
yeah.
in relation to the way that Rob wants his offense run. And Rob's had the best offense in the league for certainly since I stopped, and probably before I stopped coaching. You know, because they always get spacing. The ball goes where it's meant to go. They get a ton of threes. They open the floor, and that is a little bit more difficult for them now because of the bodies that they've got, and even kind of the group that they've got. Both Kimball and Connor, I think you could probably characterize them as score first guards as opposed to pass first guards. And I'm not criticizing by saying that. I think they're both combo guards because they're very, very good shooters. And the issue that I thought they had a little bit in this game was where they were creating their shots from, where they were, creating their good looks from. And it's always magnified against London because London have all the size and all the length on the perimeter. So, they struggled to score early, and then Connor got them close. London kind of dropped off a little bit with their offense, and then it's always the second wave that gets you. And the bit that I watched up until halftime, it was the second wave. Suddenly you've got Decker, you got Connor Morgan, and you got Victor Ndukuga and Sam Decker and stuff like that. And this is not a match of equals. It's just not. Sam Decker against anybody is not a match of equals, or Connor Morgan against anybody is not a match of equals. Let alone guys who are just coming in to play some minutes to help plug the gaps that they've caused. Leicester are basically. I know Russell's in, but they're still basically 3 high-level players down. And Russell might help fill the gap for one of them. But I'm not sure he's a pass-first guy either. I think he can pass, but I think he's also looking to score. He's kind of, I think what Russell is, he's coming out of college a little bit like Jelani Watson-Gale did last year. Division 2 college, high usage, scored the ball, passes the ball, good numbers. So the issue is he going to be able to replicate that within Leicester's system? Because Leicester have got 2 high-level guards ahead of him, whereas at Bristol, with Jelani, he kind of almost came in and kind of within about 6 weeks, if he wasn't the guy, he was very close to being the guy. Yeah. You know what I mean? Obviously, they had Mike Miller. But so that's the thing with Russell. But, it's almost impossible. I mean, when, the reality is that when we look at the team sheets, those of us who know can give you a fair idea of what's going to happen in the game with London. I'm still not comfortable with what they did against Newcastle. I'm not comfortable with the fact they put a great team out again. They put all those guys out against Leicester, and then half of them are sitting down today against Caledonia. If I was Leicester, I'd be pissed about it. Nothing they can do about it because we don't know what the rules are, but I'm not comfortable with it. I think there's a challenge to the to not necessarily the integrity of the league, but there's certainly a risk of unfairness occurring, and that's what we have rules for, to try to prevent that, apparently. So Connor Morgan is demonstrating himself to be a different level of shooter at 6'9" to anything that we've probably ever seen. He's like Mark. He's a bit like Mark Loving, but he's probably 2 inches taller. Probably 20 or 30 pounds stronger. Mark Loving, from recent vintage. I look at someone like Charles. Charles was 6'6". Charles Smith. Drew Sullivan was 6'7", 6'8". They weren't 6'9" with shoulders like Connor Morgan, and absolutely in unstoppable release. Every 3-point shot he shots looks like it's a foul shot. Looks like it's a foul shot. He does not ever look like he's off balance. That's incredible skill.
Yeah.
When you're his size, and so they kind of pulled away.
He had a 4-point play and a 3 and a 9-0 run to make it 27-40, and then it was out to 31-50. I mean, to be fair to Leicester, they did get it back to 8 in the second half, but they never looked like they were going to get.
Yeah, well, they're competitive. They're competitive. I've got no question about that. And those guys are kind of fighting, and they've got a bit of unity together now that they know they're going to be playing, and any particular issues that they've had within their group have been ironed out by the removal of them. But they're a little short certainly for London, everyone's a little short for London, but they are probably one guy. So I mean, so the centre you could probably get by with Walker and Ado against everybody apart from London. Depends on Walker, obviously, how long Walker lasts, if he's able to stay fit. But at the kind of after that, kind of the power forward spot, it's just Thomas. Thomas is a rookie, so he's up and down. Sometimes looks like he's going to be a great pro, one of the best players in the league. Other times, really struggles. And they've kind of shifted Holmes up to the 2, which means Law's playing the 3, and they don't have that much behind Law at the 3 either. You know, Bowman came in and played a bit today. So, you know, it's kind of tough. They're a bit thin. I think they're at least, I think, you know, it's very hard. You're asking a coach to take out 3, you know, high-level Division 1 Americans and kind of continue as if nothing's happened.
Yeah.
It's not really going to happen. I think they need. I mean, the word was, you know, Loving or J.R. Holden. Each of them would have been good. Holden would have been better, I think. J.R. Holder, who played for Leicester 5 or 6 years ago. Guys will remember him. You know, very, very smooth player. 3-man, kind of could have spelled a bit of the 4, could have spelled Law a bit, would have given them more depth, more another quite high quality player. But they haven't been able to get him. So they're obviously having to, you know, this is the world of British basketball we're in at the moment. People are playing on different playing fields. You know, London are on a different playing field to everybody. And everybody else is having to look a little bit further into the future to say, look, how much are we going to chase the dragon here? How much are we going to throw at, you know, what is going to be a mid-table finish, or, you know, whether we finish 3rd, whether we finish 6th or 7th. Is it worth, you know, spending money that we don't necessarily have, or that we can't really afford to do that? And again, it's that question of sustainability, and some clubs are playing to be sustainable, and some clubs are playing not to be sustainable. You know, and whatever people say, it creates an imbalance. And we're seeing the result of that imbalance at the moment. That's not commenting on whether anything is right or anything is wrong. It's just saying that is the reality of the situation. And so they are at that point whereby, as I say, you know, if Rob was being asked, you know, will Victor be playing, you know, again against London in the second quarter in November, and he would probably say, well, do you really expect me to win? Because, you know, you can't win with the young guys, and we've seen that with London's young guys. When they play a lot, they can't win either. You know, you need pros, and you need enough of them to be there. So there's stuff to be sorted, I think, and both at Leicester but London did what they do. Matt Morgan didn't really play very well, didn't need to. All of a sudden, I think actually, you know, everyone's saying Morgan's the MVP of the league and all that stuff. If all of a sudden he plays enough, I think he's my MVP of the league. I mean, he makes them so much better. You know, I mean, he's so efficient. He move, you know, he hits the shooters in the corners. He makes everything tick. He's unselfish. He's unfussy. He doesn't create drama. He just does what he does. He must be an absolute dream to play with.
Yeah, centers don't win MVPs, mate.
I know
this is in 1968.
Yeah, Joel Embiid won the MVP last year. Jokic, but that's the thing though. In the way the game is trending, because the game is trending, because screens are so important now. Because teams strategize to take the ball out of the hand of guards. The ability to have a big guy who can handle,
who can shoot,
pass, all that stuff is more important. Hence the Jokic and the stuff. You know,
fair enough.
But whether it'll change enough for the British basketball, I'm with you.
I think if Matt Morgan averages 20 a game, he wins the MVP.
Yeah, I think you're probably right if he plays.
So Washington 15 points, 5 of 8 for 3. Russell, he moved up 3 places from last week, by the way, in the all-time 3-point shooting.
I'll tell you something, you're monitoring this, aren't you?
No, it was because I went to say he was 19th, and I looked it up, and I think he was 16th. I was like, oh, he's moved.
I just cry a tear every time he gets a foul shot because I hear the disappointment.
He's down now. He might even be 3rd after today. Jeez.
Another one, didn't
you? Russell 13 points and 4 assists. Holmes 11. He was 4 of 15 shooting, mind. Leicester were 12 of 27 from 3. Connor Morgan, 7 of 8 for 19.7 rebounds. Grantham 14, Decker 13 points and 5 rebounds.
And 19 points on 8 shots. You know, you live with that. You
Yeah,
know, you
it's
really
pretty decent, isn't it? Let's go to Saturday. Bristol Flyers 78, Sheffield Sharks 76 after overtime. Dave, there's so much going on at the end of this game. I don't really want to waste time going through all of the crap at the beginning. If anybody who's seen Bristol Sheffield at the Wires, this was that. Same old, same old.
It was that on steroids, and then it went from the steroids to the LSD. The first 37 minutes of this game were dross to watch. I mean, not saying the guys weren't playing hard. Bristol scored 10 points in the first quarter, right? Yeah. It was a 9 point. It was a Raoul Graham Bell turnaround jump shot. There were 3 fast breaks, and there was a 3-point foul shot, I think, and 3 foul shots. That was it. They scored 1 basket in the half court in the whole first quarter. 1 basket in the whole first quarter, and it didn't get much better for them either. In the meantime, Sheffield were creating all these stops, but resolutely refusing to turn them into a decisive advantage. And they were scoring, but they weren't. They don't have any spirit ability. Sheffield, they score at their own pace. You know, you don't see a 9-0 run from Sheffield in a minute. A couple of turnovers and they're off and running. It doesn't happen. Certainly not away from home. So it became just an absolute slugfest with probably the best non-London defensive team in the league, basically handing it to what is probably the worst initial shot half-court offense in the league. Right, so I take the offensive rebounding out of that because they get, you know, they're pretty, and on top of that, struggling with a new point guard in as well. And you know, I think Jackson's stats in this game: 0 points, 2 zeros, maybe 2 assists, 2 turnovers, something like that. But certainly nothing which did that. So that led to, you know, it being one of those, it almost being a kind of a Plymouth Sheffield game whereby you thought, oh, Sheffield and Plymouth are never going to get back into this. It's a 12-point game, game done. You know, they'd scored 40 points after 3 quarters. They were missing layup after layup. You know, nobody was demonstrating that from Bristol's perspective that they had kind of the mentality to turn it around. But similarly, Sheffield were balancing playing 11 players. And they played 11 players at least 8 minutes. And that means that no one's really responsible for winning and no one's really responsible for losing. And that it can become an issue because when you get down the stretch, you have to know who your guys are that you're going to get the ball to. And Sheffield really, then the game, as you say, we've got the 3 minutes to go, and then the game just absolutely blew up.
Let's
just on that before we get to that. Just before we get to the last 3 minutes, a couple more things. I don't think anybody covered themselves in glory in this game. I mean, we'll get to the ref in a minute, but there was a call in the middle of the third quarter where Leslie Smith took a dribble down the baseline, took 2 steps, you know, went up to make a layup. With nobody else there, it was hit on the arm and the ball just went out of bounds, right? And it was a foul call on the ground, right? And that beats the Unsworth call at Newcastle last year when Justin Gordon was 3 steps into his layup, right? Yeah. That was as bizarre a call as I've ever seen because it wasn't that he could be making a pass because the ball went out of bounds. It wasn't like you know you fouled and you throw it to somebody else away from the basket. He took 2 steps. He was under the hoop, and the ref. And I'm thinking, where's your head at if you're calling that? And then it kind of it just went mental, didn't it?
So there's only one place to start for the mental. 127 to go. Smith and Samuels going for a rebound, managed to tip it up into their own basket.
Before that, we have the one which went through and from underneath as well.
Oh, yeah.
And on top of that, we have this is when I say no one covered themselves in glory, I mean it, because 2 minutes into the fourth quarter, Sheffield are running away with this game. They're comfortable, they're in rhythm, and then there's a 7-minute stoppage. And there's a 7-minute stoppage because apparently someone's recorded a foul wrong. And what we see in the 7 minutes, because I did it on YouTube, I checked it out. I did. It was a timeout, so a minute of that is legitimate.
Yeah.
That's 6 minutes where the rhythm of the game is blown, right? And then you look at the screen and you see the screen, you've got someone on the scorers table scrolling through their mobile phone to try and find out what's going on. And I'm like, what are we doing? You know, the referee make a call. If the wrong guy's got a foul, then either do you remember it? Can you change it or can you not? You don't spend 5 minutes scrolling through someone's personal mobile phone to try and work out what's happened, whether they're watching the video or whether they're looking at the stats or whatever. We don't have IRS. We don't do that. I don't understand why there should be mobile phones on the table. I don't understand why that should be going on. This needs to be addressed. It needs to be properly regulated because it's clearly not at the moment. And on top of that, the reason it impacts things, because I think it was Allison's, at the end of the day, it was whether Allison had 1 or 2 fouls, so it was pretty insignificant. It takes 6 minutes out of the game. If I'm Sheffield, and I'm watching it, I'm annoyed. Fortunately, I was watching it on catch-up, so I wasn't annoyed. I could go back and pick the bits on. But if I'm Sheffield, I'm thinking, well, you know, I want this game to continue. I want to get the hell out of Wise as quick as I can. Because you've been in Wise before, and you've seen what can go wrong. And so you want that. It's like in cricket, where you've got a bowler who's, you know, in the middle overs of the one day international, and you've got Jadeja comes on and bowls 6 balls in like 35 seconds, hurrying up the batter. You want the clock to be ticking so Bristol don't remember that they can score, you know, and it didn't. So that wasn't good. Then, as I say, there was the refereeing call, and there was a couple of other slightly dubious ones as well. But then we get to and there was a ball that went up through the basket, which actually, to be fair, they got right. Well, no, I don't know if they did get it right, because I thought if it goes up the basket, that should be a violation.
It was one of those I meant to look up. I can't remember. I do remember John Tresvant, a game in Manchester where for some reason I was doing the 24-second clock, plucked out of the crowd. Pete Jakes was on the book, I think. And basically
there's a story, but we'll not hear it.
Yeah, John Tresvant went through the lane and threw the ball up, got fouled, threw the ball up, and it went into the bottom of the net and then came back down, but it didn't go over and through. It went and all the referees, I think there was only 2 referees at that point, had seen was the ball falling out the bottom of the net. So they gave an and 1. And of course, they didn't come and ask the table because there was a 16-year-old.
The random
just random people. And we were like, but it didn't actually go in, ref. And Tresvant was.
Well, I can't contemplate that the ball going through the basket, either up or down. In this case, both can be a situation where players are allowed to continue.
I meant to look it up and I forgot.
I can't see that. I mean, and again, this just goes to show that we're not all the kind of the know-it-alls that we proclaim to be, because I don't know. But I'm pretty certain that should be a violation. And I'm sure I'll be corrected at some point. But so that happened as well. No one seemed to know what had gone on. But then, so then we get the own basket where Bristol at this point are desperately trying not to come back. Right? Because and actually Sheffield are trying not to win either, because Sheffield get up 10. Then Bennett Cook misses 2 foul shots. This is before what you're talking about, right? Bennett Cook misses 2 foul shots. Then he commits a foul on over the back at 94 feet from the basket, allowing them to get 2 points, with the clock stopped. And then, so they're down to 8 with like 1 minute and 50 seconds to go. And you're thinking, oh, this might be getting interesting. And then, Leslie Smith and Allison managed to tip it into their own basket.
I think it was. I think it was Smith and Samuels, but
Smith and Samuels.
Smith played for Sheffield though, didn't he? So his old habits.
He did,
hard.
To be fair,
old habits die hard. So then Smith.
From memory, Dan, he didn't score much for Sheffield.
No, he didn't. No. But he did score a few against them in this one. He then hits a 3, 58-65 with 1:14 to go. He then deflects a pass for a steal, and Ollison makes a 3, 61-65.
Yeah, just on those plays. Again, I thought this was pretty, negligent from Sheffield. I mean, the 3 that Smith made, he banked in. So you go, oh, wow, what a shot. How lucky can you be? What can you do if you're a defender? Well, at this point in time, Coke was in the game.
He didn't. That was the next one that he banks in. It wasn't this one.
Oh, sorry, my fault. So he makes a 3 from the top. Okay, he makes a 3 from the top. That's right. That's a good shot. And then they come back down. Ollison again. They let him shoot his little kind of step back. And when you're up 7 or you're up 8 in the last minute, it becomes a game of maths. Right? You aren't giving up 3s because there's only so many possessions left in the game. And you can get 6 points, in 2 possessions, or you can get 6 points in 3 possessions. If it takes you 3 possessions, you're not going to win. If it takes you 2 possessions, you're right back in it. And they gave up, and Ollison particularly, that is his shot. He will look to step back, and they gave that up. Eventually, they made one, and suddenly game on, 65-61.
Yeah. Timeout. Thomas Edwards seemed determined to foul Ramsey as far as I could see, and yet Andreas seemed less impressed at it, like it wasn't actually the...
he was less impressed because he fouled him with 10 seconds to go. He wasted 15 seconds. He shouldn't have fouled him.
Well, he seemed to have fouled him earlier, but it wasn't called.
Yeah.
And then he makes the first, misses the second. It goes out of bounds for a flyer's ball, 61-66. They seem to take way too long for me. I couldn't work out what they were doing. They 20 seconds to go, so they'd lost 16 seconds. And this is the one that Smith banks in a 3.
Yeah, they were looking for a 3, and they were hunting a 3 basically. And what they were left with eventually was the big guy who, is always going to be the easiest person to get a 3 out of, because the guy who's guarding the big guy is also going to be helping a little bit on everybody else. So it was Cook. And as I say, at this point, for me, for defense, I'd have had Adekoya in the game. I thought he might, Andreas has taken Green out of the game. Green is out of the game because they've had no spacing at all in the game. They haven't been able to score with Green in the game.
He also seemed to have something on his knee, so I don't know whether
that might be right. Oh, well, maybe it wasn't a tactical genius.
Yeah.
Okay, but nevertheless, he's got Smith in the game. Now, what Smith means is you've got an extra shooter in the game, so you're stretching the floor, and Cook was still guarding him, and the only 3 that they could get was Smith. And again, at that point in the defense, your defender has to be right up on him, forcing him to dribble, because if he makes that, he makes a 2. It doesn't beat you. It's a 3-point game. You put the ball in bounds, and you get fouled. But he didn't. He gave up the 3. And if it goes, at that point, the good defense is not letting them get a shot off, not letting them get a 3 off. Make them get a 2, because the numbers are in your favor. It's not just putting a hand up and saying, "Well, that was a lucky shot."
Yeah. And then we can't really see it because we cut to the crowd, and
and this is the last group of people who don't cover themselves in glory, I'm afraid. Producers got quite a lot right in this game, but they have to stop cutting immediately after baskets are scored, because they're cutting away from what's going on. And at the end of games, you watch them put the ball in, commit the foul, and then you cut away. You don't cut away once a shot goes in, because what goes on under that basket can change the game. It can turn the game. And we don't want close-ups. I don't want the crowd. I don't want the table. I don't want the refs. I don't want the coaches until the ball is dead. And the ball is not dead when it goes through the rim. So they can listen to this if they want, or you can take it back to them, or nobody will care.
You could tell them yourself, Dave.
Yeah, I might tell it myself at some point. Yeah, indeed. But they didn't cover themselves in glory, because we don't know what happened.
We don't quite know what happened. No,
I don't know how this. I don't know if that was a steal. I assume Ramsey turned the ball over, because Ramsey didn't play much after that. But we don't know if it was a foul. We don't know if Tebow was upset because there was a foul committed on the steal, because we didn't see it and they didn't have a replay of it. So that was
what we do know is that Ollison comes up with the ball, because we come back and Ollison's got the ball, and he is called for a double dribble. And then everybody's going mad. There's a long chat. I'm not a lip reader, but there was something about fudge. I'm sure it definitely looked like fudge.
I screwed up.
I fudged it up, or something to that effect. And it ends up being a flyer's ball with 20 seconds. 20 seconds.
Well, I mean, it's pretty clear that he didn't double dribble. Secondly, it's pretty impressive that the ref would turn around and accept that, having made that call in that circumstance. I say it's pretty clear he didn't dribble. I'm not sure we saw everything, but I'm pretty sure, given the reaction of everybody, indeed the get onto my knees and plead for my life. But he didn't. So it's not great that we get to that kind of point whereby the ref blows his whistle erroneously, but it does happen in pressure situations, because refs are human too. And for the ref to turn around and say, yeah, okay, I got that wrong. I can think of a number of refs who would not have done that. I'm telling you that. I can think of a couple who teed us up for telling them. So and I actually think that's good. Of course, this is where IRS comes in, because if a coach had a challenge, the ref wouldn't have to say that. The coach could just use a challenge, or if we had a rule in the last minute that the refs could go to the table, last 2 minutes, the refs could go to the table for anything like that. We wouldn't need it. All the drama after that would be just eliminated, because they just have a quick get on with the game. It's a right call, get on with the game. But we don't have that, because you tell me. So yeah, I give the ref credit for doing that. Now but that has a domino effect, obviously, because at this point, having just seen a 3-pointer banked in, having seen his point guard not be able to get the ball in bounds, and having seen a game which was, well within their grasp, having been delayed for 7 minutes for someone to scroll through YouTube, the Sheffield coach, Atiba, begins to dissemble, is probably the best phrase.
He took his jacket off.
Well, that was a little bit late, I think, but he certainly it was maybe then.
I thought he was remarkably calm, actually, when it was being explained to him. I thought he took it pretty well, which led me to believe that he probably agreed with it, but that was the point the jacket came off.
Admit it, I say it begins in December. I didn't say it fully December, but at this point, we've seen it all before in that gym. It's like, all sorts of crap is happening. No one's in control of anything. So, it's a Wild West. So that adds to the entertainment. Then they get the ball in bounds, and I think Ollison
gets a handoff, goes straight to the rim, and ties the game at 66.
So kind of the focus of, I think the focus of Sheffield has been impacted by all this stuff. I think their heads are in a little bit of a spin at this point, because you look at the clock, and it's like 9 seconds to go. It's 66 all. If you're on Sheffield, you're thinking, how has this happened? There's so many things gone wrong. And then we get the
so it's 30. It was 13 seconds to go. They call a timeout. They advance the ball. Nixon misses the 3. The long rebound comes out. Nichols. He shovels it onto Glasgow, who shoots a 3. And in real time, I thought he got fouled on the shot in real time. I've since watched it back, and my debate is, did he get fouled on the shot, or was it after the shot? So my only argument is, should he be shooting 2 free throws or 3 free throws?
Well, I looked at that as well, and I didn't see it actually as a foul at the time, because my eyes followed the ball when it went in the air. And what happens is, as he shoots it, Jacob, who is long anyway, he is very athletically up there, and he makes him shoot it with his hand up much higher than you would otherwise want to shoot it. And the parabola of the ball is such that, it's not a comfortable shot, and it's never going to go in. What happens, though, is that Rod follows through. And as he follows through, probably after he comes down, Jacob's hand gets tangled up with Glasgow's hand. Wrists, effectively. So it's like a crossover motion. You watch it in slow motion, it's really quite intriguing. And the question then is, one, as you say, has that impacted the shot at all, or is it after his feet have touched the ground? It's probably after his feet have touched the ground, probably 2 foul shots if it's a foul. And 2, because Glasgow's hand has extended beyond the vertical when he shot the ball, right? And therefore making contact with Jacob's hands as well, because it's what you do, you follow right through. And the contact's happened at that point. Is that a foul at all? Okay, and now I looked with, because they both stayed tangled up. There's obviously been contact, and I don't know the answer to that. I think if I'd had it on YouTube to review, if I had reviewed that again, I don't think coaches can challenge no calls, can they? But if you watched it on YouTube, I think I would probably gone with you that it's at the end of his shooting motion, but there's contact on the space whereby Glasgow's allowed to have the ball. It's after his feet have landed. It's 2 foul shots. That's, I think, what I would have gone with. But that's a tough call. When you watch that back at the speed that's going on, that is a tough call. And at this point, I mean, everything that's gone on, because you have to remember, the atmosphere is somewhat feverish.
Yeah.
At this point, blowing your whistle, at that point is a tough call. So, I think Sheffield were unlucky. I do think one thing I did notice was that Rod wasn't that. It was Atiba that was more upset than Rod. Which tells me something. I think Rod knew the shot. He wasn't going to make that shot because of the way that Jacob.
Well, the shot fell short, and then Retino got the ball, but because it had fallen short, he was sort of under the backboard, and he tried to get another shot off, and he hit the bottom of the backboard.
Yeah, so that wasn't going anywhere. There's nothing wrong with that. So
but it is. My view is it's 100% a foul, and I thought that in real time. I thought it was a foul, but it was one of them where I thought it was foul, and then when I watched it back, I thought it was worse than I saw in real time.
Yeah.
To be fair, so I think I would have been like Atiba at the end of the game there. I think.
Well, yeah.
But to be fair to him, Atiba did the smart thing of waiting until after the buzzer had gone to go absolutely ballistic. And storm on the court and presumably talk about fudge or something. Because he got a technical, which obviously, if it was before the buzzer, would have potentially won the game for Bristol. But as it's after the buzzer, just starts overtime.
Yeah, and then also missed anyway. I mean, that was an interesting one because I get the anger, I get the upset. Part of it is with his own team. Part of it is with the manner in which the last 20 seconds of the game has gone down because it was a long way from competence. But then the question is that the anger, is that going to generate and improve kind of the resistance of your players, or is
well, the interesting thing I thought about it was he went on. He obviously was clearly very angry at the referees. He got his technical. He turned round. He walked back to the bench. He seemed very calm walking to the bench. And then when he got into the huddle, he then laid into them again as if it was...
Into them again, yeah. And I mean, what I will say is that I thought he was challenging the refs to throw him out. I thought there was a bit of a power play going on because it wasn't so much kind of coming out at them after at the end of the... I get that. I've been there. If you don't get a call at the end of the game and you're going at them, and Glasgow had to grab him back. But then he came again to the middle of the court and he was saying something to the social media guys somewhere over there. And I'm thinking to myself, you've got your technical, you're coming out again to the middle of the court. You're demonstrating. You shouldn't be in the middle of the court on any legitimate basis at that point. I thought he challenged the ref to throw him out, and they didn't. And I think at this point the ref's heads were spinning as well, to be honest. And it was probably the path of least resistance at that point.
So we get to overtime, as you say. The free throw was missed for the technical, but Bristol got on top, and with I'll spin it again because we spent a lot of time. We go to the final minute. Smith with a great tip in makes it 78-70. Retino. 51.
Well, just on that, Dan, just a couple of things. Sorry, before we get to that. One, as I say, Ramsey didn't come out in overtime. Pipkins didn't play in overtime, or didn't play until the end of overtime. And Glasgow started. Glasgow hadn't played many minutes in the game at all. And so that impacted, obviously, Sheffield. It wasn't the guys you'd necessarily expect to be on the court. Obviously, Bristol playing with momentum as well. And Smith played, Smith had his game of his season, undoubtedly, probably game of a few seasons, because he was impactful against his old club situation. We've seen this all over. Every time someone plays against their old club, it was, Josh Ward-Hibbert made 5 threes at London last week, and Jordan Johnson did it against Caledonia. Patrick Whelan against Leicester. That there is something about that, and players, again, it doesn't make any sense because as a fan, you think they're all pros, are going to play every game as hard as they can, but there's something in the water. So Leslie Smith's come out and absolutely had a dominating game. More importantly, defensively. But even at this point, I thought Sheffield got a couple of hard calls, even a little bit before that. There was one play where I think Nixon drove with about a minute and a half to go in overtime. Nixon drove hard to his left, and Raoul Graham, I think it was Raoul Graham, who was well inside the restricted zone, took a lot of contact. ends up with Nixon on the baselines, you know, on the ground with holding his ribs, and there's no call. And I'm thinking, well, that has to be something. He's in the restricted zone, you know, that has to be a block. And I just think the whole thing was just a bit febrile at that point. And Bristol lived off that, and you know, played the way they do with all that extra effort and energy, get their 8-point lead, and then proceeded to try to give it back.
51 seconds to go. Rotino makes a 3. Sheffield are obviously pressing, trying to force something. Smith thinks he's got an open lane to the rim and misses. To me, that is an absolutely terrible shot. You're up 5. You're up 5 with 45 seconds to go. You need 24 seconds more than you need 2 points in that situation.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was just, I mean, but again, it's adrenaline, isn't it? He's making every play. It's just adrenaline.
You know, but even worse than that was he then immediately fouls Cook.
Yeah.
So after the rebound, and there's 2 there's 2 free throws. So 8 seconds after Sheffield had made a 3, Sheffield are back on the free throw line with nothing added to the score.
Like a steal. And this is the crazy thing, and we say it week in, week out about, you know, these are professional players, and part of the reason that they haven't reached higher levels, every player has a certain level, and every player has a certain level, is because you have to have a degree of court presence and court savvy on the court. And that means you have to be able to think clearly in times of under severe pressure. And that's what separates the best players. I mean, I'll tell you now, Jordan Taylor is the best example of a guy who is beyond his physical capabilities because of his mental level. You see it in the game. You see him figuring out he can still play. He's a hell of a player. You know, but we've seen guards with the same game that Jordan Taylor has in this league who have never got beyond this league. You know, and this time it was Leslie Smith, and it's been other players in the past. In fact, it's a different player every week normally. Just doing things that just make no sense, and it just really it frustrates the living Jesus out of us at times. Sorry, not that I've got any Jesus in me.
Then 43. So there's 2 free throws made, 78-75. 22. This time they do run the clock. 22 seconds to go. Tough shot from Jacob, and Adekoya, who'd come in for Cook after the 2 free throws, gets the rebound, and then another one to add to the "what the hell are you doing" list. Jacob, arguing with the ref, gets called for a technical foul with 19 seconds to go. Up 3.
Yeah, I wasn't a great fan of that technical. I'll be honest. I thought he got a little bump off Adekoya. It probably wasn't a foul. The ball was flying around, unless he said something absolutely beyond the pale. The gesticulation wasn't great. I just think if you're going to call a technical with 19 seconds to go in a 3-point game, you better be ironclad. I'm not sure he was ironclad.
I think you don't say anything. You run back on defense and don't give the referee a chance.
You don't give the referee a chance. Well, of course, that's the other side of it. But there is that's asking, that's taking emotion entirely out of it. And there's a way you can talk to refs, and there's a way you can't. And obviously, he said something that the ref considered that he couldn't say. But certainly, the fact that he was complaining wasn't in itself enough for me for a tech to be given. But I think everyone's head was spinning by this point.
So Nichols makes the free throw. It's a 2-point game, 78-76. There's 19.6 seconds to go. Glasgow gets
that's
into
3-point.
Hey,
that's 3 free points I've given them.
Yeah. Glasgow gets into the key, but they'd had a switch, so Smith was guarding him. He couldn't get the shot up over him, and he blocked the shot.
Yeah, great play.
Jacobs is then running away with the ball, and all he has to do is run out time. Just run away from the Sheffield players, get to the corner. I mean, I suppose you could score, but it doesn't matter. But he seems to get caught in 2 minds as to whether to dribble it or to pass it to Ollison, and he gets called for a double dribble. I suspect it might have been a travel rather than a double dribble. I'm not
sure what it was. I thought maybe it might have been a carry, maybe.
Yeah, it looked illegal. Whatever it was,
I don't think it was, actually. I mean, I watched it back. I mean, it might have been a carry, but that's the way he dribbles the ball most of the time. But he dribbled the basketball. He kind of took a little hop step before he dribbled the ball, which looked unusual.
Yeah.
But I don't think that was a travel.
I think it was because he put two hands on the ball as he did the hop step, as if he was going to pass, and then went down with it.
Yeah, but that was when he was establishing possession. That he hadn't dribbled the ball at that point. So he's establishing possession with two hands, which is fine. And then dribbles and dribbles 3 dribbles before the call's made. And obviously at this point he can't say anything, so we can't do any of the pleading stuff. He's already had one tech. But again, I mean, I'm interested in what any referees watching think of that, because I wasn't, this is the same referee just called the technical on him. I wasn't convinced by that call.
I wasn't in real time, but the one from the baseline, the camera angle from the baseline, made me go, I'm not quite sure. That doesn't quite look right. So
exactly. Yeah.
So I could see why it was called, because it didn't quite look right. I didn't think it was a double dribble. Timeout, advanced the ball. They struggled to get the ball in. I suspect the play had been blown up by the way they got the ball into Adekoya, and then he jacked up a 3, but it was blocked by Smith.
He passed it back, didn't he? Did he not pass it back to Glasgow?
No, he just shot it. One dribble shot.
I think he maybe blew up the handoff, and then he had to turn around and shoot it. Well, at that point, I think everyone was tired, weren't they? But at that point, it was only a 2-point game, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was whatever the final. Yeah, 2-point game. Yeah.
So, but they only had 3 sets. So it was a bit disappointing that they couldn't get anything going to the rim, or maybe a passing for an open 3 or something. But wow, you tell me. I mean, Sheffield thinking, how the hell did we lose that game? Basically. Nobody, I think, coming out of it with much credit. I don't think Bristol played particularly well. I think Sheffield played pretty well until they melted down. I think refs lost control. I think your cameraman missed 4 seconds of importance. Apart from that, it was great.
So Jacob 20 points, Smith 13 points, 11 rebounds, 7 blocks, which is the most in Flyers.
Jacob made a couple of massive threes as well, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
I mean, to be fair, that's the one you wanted against Caledonia.
Yeah. Ollison 18 points and 4 assists. I'm not sure that's right, but check it. Cook 15 points, 9 rebounds. Nichols 13 points. Rotino and Nixon both had 11. Let's come to today. London Lions 94, Caledonia Gladiators 100 after overtime. Decker, Matt Morgan, and Philip not playing today. Well, sorry, I was going on the players who played the other day.
But like 3 of them worked so hard that they couldn't play on Sunday. Yeah, right. Okay.
So I said to my wife actually on the second play, because my wife had said, "Are you watching basketball again?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then she went, "Oh, London are going to win." And I went, "All right." And then she said, I can't remember what she said, 82-65 or something like that.
Yeah, my wife's given up asking me. She just knows.
Yeah. And then on the second play, I said to her, "I think London are going to lose this game." And she said, "Why is that?" I said, "Because Decker and Morgan are not playing. They've just given Whelan a rhythm 3 on the first play, and Connor Morgan has hit the side of the backboard with the first shot of the game. I don't think they're quite there today."
Yeah.
They were sloppy in the first quarter, weren't they, London?
They were, and Caledonia, to be fair, made some shots and again benefited from having a tighter rotation. Which meant that those guys getting more reps with each other. And as you see, Whelan making shots, and we know Police is an absolute knockdown shooter. And Faro was really demonstrating, competing. Faro has the body size to be able to kind of compete with both Sharma and Olaseni. He gives up fouls because he's a little bit undersized for them, but they don't walk to the rim, if that makes any sense. And that is a big thing, because later on in the game it gets harder. It means they don't know that they've got a layup waiting for them whenever they want one. So him and Moore used up a lot of fouls, but they also effectively protected them from getting any easy baskets. And the reality is that, I mean, this game, I think London would have won this game if Luke Nelson doesn't get hurt. Because Luke Nelson was their 5th guy, and coach, no doubt, is looking at the team that he's got, thinking, I've got Nelson, I've got Taylor, I've got Conor Morgan, I've got Grantham, and I've got one of Olaseni and Sharma to finish the game. And if we're close, that unit should be able to beat them. But when Nelson goes down, that becomes a very different situation, because one of those guys has to be either Queely, Kaboza, or Sandy. And that is a whole different kettle of fish, because it gives someone that Caledonia can help off. And I thought Caledonia in this game did a really good job in making the guys who were meant to beat them. The opposite of what Newcastle did. Sorry, because suddenly, sorry, Ian, talk us through the game.
Alhodjic and Buttrick, they're natural 3-point shooters. 7-0 finish to the first quarter. They're up 11. Caledonia. Whelan sat down, the offense slowed down a bit. Morgan and Kaboza and Nelson hit threes. London got in front 34-33. Whelan came back. Paliza hit a 3. Whelan hit a 4-point play. Onwest hit a 3, and they were back out to 11 again. And to be honest with you, they kind of kept themselves in front, but they couldn't stop Olaseni at all, except for sending him to the free throw line and using up the fouls that you were just talking about. And even then, he made the free throws. Yeah.
And so London had enough to keep them close. But coach was always balancing minutes, and coach is really good balancing minutes. If you look at the box scores, very rarely anybody plays above 25 minutes in a 40 game in that team. Very rarely. Maybe Matt, we talk about, Matt Morgan's got to 28 minutes, you've won, that's a little victory. And because Olaseni and Sharma get the share of the minutes, and obviously Jordan Taylor's a vet and he doesn't want to be playing. Jordan Taylor 33 minutes in the BBL game. Jordan Taylor got hurt at the end of this game.
I thought it might be cramped the way he was moving.
Maybe, yeah. So he played more minutes than he used to. So therefore there were minutes for kind of Sandy and Kaboza, and Kaboza in particular kind of played with a lot of energy, but he's kind of the opposite of this London team. They are surgical and precise. Bradley Kaboza at this point in his career is athletic and a little bit harem-scarum and a little bit random, a little bit wild. In relation to decisions he makes, he's turnover prone at times as well. So that means that there are always possessions there for Caledonia to get back, and Caledonia was scoring sufficiently because London's defense was.
And the other thing is, going back to Kaboza, is he made a couple of threes early on, but Caledonia were going to give him the ones in the corner, and he couldn't make them in the.
There's one point in the fourth quarter. You watch, all of a sudden he's got the ball in the post. He's got two guys lined up behind him, Sandy and Kaboza on the weak side, and he's got Paliza and whoever was guarding him, maybe Buttrick, stood in the paint. So if we get past Alhodjic, he's got no to basically saying, "Please throw him the ball." And this is the way. This is a game of numbers. Olaseni in the post as opposed to Kaboza in the corner with 3 minutes to go. Your numbers say, "Well, throw it to Kaboza, please." If that's Nelson in the corner, your numbers say, "Oh, we're gonna have to, we have to do it." And that's not to say Kaboza can't make those shots. I'm sure he can, but it's different to having been in that position on multiple times and having made them. And so, finding that fifth player for London was a problem without kind of overstretching the remainder of the starters and working on the basis that you cannot play Olaseni and Sharma at the same time, because he's only tried about twice, and both times it's looked pretty awful. It kind of got close. Yeah.
So let's get to the end. 2 minutes to go. Morgan on a curl, fouled on a 3-point shot, makes all three, 78-78. DeBoe's late shot clock, tough drive, misses. Morgan misses a 3. Grantham misses an offensive rebound, put back. 1:12 to go. Whelan drive to the rim. Caledonia in front. 78.
Just that play again. That was on Kaboza. Kaboza let him go right from the left side. And again, it's a rookie mistake. It's not a mistake. He's not trying to make it, but he's in the right. You can't let Pat Whelan drive right from the left-hand side. He has to be forced to go to his left. If he goes to his right, he is scoring because he changes to his left hand to finish. And that was a rookie mistake because there was a rookie on the court.
Timeout. Out of the timeout, Morgan misses a 3. Whelan a little early in the shot clock, but it's the sort of shot you see him make. He missed the 3. 31 seconds to go. Great pass from Taylor. down the lane to to Olesheni, who was fouled by Onwas. That was his 5th foul. He was out of the game. Olesheni made both free throws, ties the game at 80 points apiece. Timeout, no advance. They ran the clock. DeBose drives, kicks. Buttrick is the open man, hits a 3 with 11 seconds to go, 80-83.
At this point, I think both Ali Hodzic and Moore had fouled out, or if they hadn't, they were very close.
Yeah.
I mean that for the last 2 or 3 minutes, Caledonia had been playing with 5 out. Buttrick is a shooter. He's a 3-point shooter, really. His touch around the rim is not great, but he is a threat, spotting up at the 3-point line. And having that 5th guy, instead of filling the middle where the centre could help, where Olesheni could help on any drivers, but having him out on the perimeter really impacted London's defense, both in this period, but also in overtime as well, because it gave them more space to cover, less immediate help. And to be fair to Buttrick, who has struggled, and I talked about it last week. He was second in line to Jovicic, really. He knocked down a few shots in this game.
He did, yeah.
He has good size, so he does rebound the ball pretty well, and he has to knock down those shots but he looked better, I'll say, as the stretch 5 than he does as a 4, because as a 4 in the BBL, he doesn't have much quickness. Because 4s are generally small. So they've been better with Onwas at the 4, and when he played at the 5, he can stretch the floor that way. And it was a good pass, and he made the shot, so credit to him.
Yeah. And then what have I got? I've got timeout, advance the ball. They seem to get nothing really, London. They were running out of clock, and then Taylor on the buzzer makes a heck of a shot to tie it and send it to overtime.
Well, they were looking for 3s. They were hunting the 3. Yeah. They weren't going to play the 2 and foul game. They were wanting the 3, which meant that they were running people off the weave at the top, and they were particularly looking for Conor Morgan. The Caledonia did a great job of switching basically everything and taking that away. But these guys are so good that you make one false step, right, and they'll get you. And Jordan Taylor, it was Trent Buttrick again. He was the guy who ended up switched on to Taylor. He takes one step too far. There is no reason at all at that point, right, for him to retreat inside the 3-point line. And he does. If you watch it back, he's shuttling across, but instead of retreating, instead of just basically chasing him over the 3-point line or staying in front that way, he steps back as if he's a little bit protecting the basket like you would do in a normal situation. And that gives Taylor the opportunity to pull up on a dime and nail the shot that he's made. It's a fantastic shot, but he shouldn't have got it. Now, there's other thing. They could have fouled as well, of course.
Yeah, they could have.
Could have fouled 2 seconds to go as well. But they were doing such a good job on the switch. But you get a big onto a little, and that's what the big naturally does. The big doesn't want to be blown by. So naturally, trying to stay in front of it, you're trying to stay in front of him. But if he's looking to shoot a 3, you really don't want to be in front of him. You want to be on the side of him or almost behind him, because it's very much harder to make a 3 when you've ran past somebody and pulled up and you don't know where they are than it is when you're stepping in front of them and able to step back and see the rim, and that's a more comfortable shot. So it was an awesome play, and I've just took all the joy out of it. I know that.
Yeah.
But every action there's a reaction. It was just half a step by Buttrick, half a step.
But a great shot nonetheless.
In
overtime, Paliza's making shots. He had a ridiculous bank 4-point play. Whelan hit
didn't
3.
Let the foul on that call. Just on that one.
No, I wasn't. In real time, basically.
No, the refs in our league, they struggle at times with this thing called high five, whereby you see it in the NBA, whereby if a defensive player high fives the offensive player after he shot the ball. So basically, offensive player shoots the ball, defensive player's challenging it, and hand hits hand after the ball is gone. That is not a foul in the NBA. Right? They call it a high five. They've done video reviews where it's been overturned, it's been explained. Okay, and I think that's what some of the players get a little bit frustrated, because they're saying, I've just got my hand up there and the guy's followed through and he's hit me with his hand. Now, if you hit him on the arm or you hit him on the wrist or anything like that, obviously that's different. But the high five is where both hands are basically the top of their apex. And I thought that was one of those calls. And because the refs hear contact, they think that's a foul. And I don't think it should be. It might be in European basketball.
I think it is. I wasn't in real time. I wasn't even 100% sure that they'd made contact, but I think they did. But they made enough shots, Caledonia, and they gave themselves.
See, I was always there's always a cliche. I never knew where it come from about the hand being part of the ball. I never got that. Understood that.
That was when you were holding the ball. If you slapped down there, rather than on a shot.
Basically, the 5 out. The 5 out killed London because they made threes. They made threes. Police made them, but Whelan made them Dubose, and it allowed Dubose to get to the rim as well because they had that more space. And I'm surprised at times more teams don't take their centers out and play that way. Caledonia is perfect for it because, as I say, it really kind of maximizes Buttrick's skill set, and it also allows Dubose a lot more latitude without them having to worry about running into Ali Hodzic's man or Mua's man stood in the middle. And at this point, and they did a great job of ensuring that the right players shot the ball. They made the London Leicester players shoot the ball, and at the moment they haven't demonstrated that they can kind of close out games or even stay in games at times. So they do have a drop off. They got 10, really high levels, or 11 really high level senior players. If you take 5 of them away and you're still managing minutes, it's not easy. It's not going to be easy to win games in the British Basketball League, but at the moment they don't need to win games because they know they can flick a switch when they want, and no doubt they're still 2 wins ahead of Caledonia and Cheshire, and no doubt they'll be happy that they can beat those teams when they need to because they'll prioritise those games.
Olashani, 26 points, 9 of 10 from the floor, 8 of 9 from the free throw line, 11 fouls drawn.
So that's 26 points on 10 shots.
10 shots, yeah.
He's winning the prize this week.
Nelson, 16, Morgan, 16.6 rebounds, 4 assists. Whelan, 5 of 8 threes for 24 points. DeBose, 23.7 rebounds, 7 assists. Buttrick, 3 of 5 from 3 for 16 points. There was 17 of 32 from 3, Caledonia.
That's because London didn't defend them the way they should, but also because you have Whelan and DeBose playing 41 minutes each. They haven't been playing those minutes. Those minutes have been when the other guys have been in, and to be fair, Jimenez came in and played just as well as Jovicic has, probably if not better. We also had I think we had Malcolm Fraser, Ali Fraser, and Fraser Malcolm in this game. Congrats. Josh, I'm listening. You can call me out on that 3-2 zone, but I am listening. And that was one upon even Rowe's best efforts. That was.
So let's go to the final game. Cheshire Phoenix 87, Leicester Riders 83. Bowman was back for Leicester. Holden was back for Cheshire, although we didn't see him to the 4th quarter when they had a bit of foul trouble, so I don't think they were wanting him to be back, even though he was listed.
I don't think it was foul trouble. I think they were just desperate for someone to get
something.
Playing. Yeah.
Well, whatever the reason, we didn't see him till the end. He did have an impact, to be fair. Cheshire with the first 6, Leicester with the next 8. Riders in a zone defense, just about able to keep in front. Second quarter, Knicks made a couple of threes, and they were also getting some offensive rebounds, which is the trade-off when you sit in a zone. But Leicester were just about able to keep in front.
Yeah, a few points about this game. Number one, why does the zone work against Cheshire? Well, it worked for Caledonia. Leicester had done their scouting properly because they looked at what Caledonia did last week, and Caledonia stifled Cheshire in the zone. And you think, well, they've got all these guys and they're bombing 3, so why would the zone work? Well, the zone works because Cheshire don't pass the ball much. Cheshire are a team which knows where it wants to go, get the ball and want to attack early in the shot clock, attack off the dribble, create an advantage and then kick it out for shot. So against the zone, you've got to be a little bit more cerebral, and you've got kind of a Rideau who made some shots in this game, but isn't a shoot first point guard as well. So they're having to think a bit more.
He shoots. The other thing is he made a few shots in this game which wouldn't have been on the scout report because he shoots. I was looking at it earlier. 26% from 3 and 42% from
fouling.
Two. From 2. No, 38% from the foul line. So on that basis, you're wanting to make them think, not just get the ball and get the head down, get the gym. So that's and the 2-3 zone, I didn't see that much. There were a couple of little sets with kind of screens for corner threes, but they still looked a little bit stymied by it. Also, Cheshire take a lot and do make a lot as a result of taking a lot, but they're not they're in the bottom end of the table in terms of percentages.
10% percentages, yeah. So it's, but more than anything, it's their tempo, their cadence. You're slowing them down. You know, you're taking away from attack points for them. And so it's something they're going to have to kind of figure out as the season goes on, because you're seeing what happens in the BBL, which is teams just to each other. And one team does something successfully, everybody else copies it. So expect to see 4 teams run the 3-2 zone next week. You know, it's going to, these things happen. It's copycat league. And Leicester scored the ball really well, you know, and they have, you know, Lowell, Mackenzie, obviously McConnell's in the game, and they're getting enough from Walker and Adobo that they were able to score, and they were able to score in transition. So the problem is at Cheshire, you have to be able to score the ball. You have to be able to continue to score the ball. And they struggled a little bit with that. But, you know, for about 3/4 of this game, Leicester were in control of the game. They played better. They were doing all the things that they needed to do to win the game.
So third quarter, Lowell hitting shots, riders out in transition, 23-8 run in about 6 minutes in the third quarter. They were up 13, 60-73, and then it all switched round at the start of the fourth quarter. Riders couldn't get anything to go. Knicks with 19-4 start to take the lead, 81-79.
Yeah, well, as you say, they introduced Holden, who looked like a guy who hadn't played for a while and his team had been winning. He came in with an absolute ton of energy and mentality, and he was clapping his hands on defense and all this type of stuff, because he's clearly been watching. You know, it's no fun watching your team win when you're not there, because how important are you then? You know, it's always more fun when they're losing when you're not there, because then it's how important you are. You know, that sounds remarkably selfish, but it's the certain point of that is a player's mentality. So I have to prove myself. It's why basketball is my favorite sport. It's because it's the individual battles within the team concept. So they're so contradictory at times. Players have to be individual, have to look after themselves, but they also have to do it as part of the team, and the coach has to figure out how to do that all together, get the best individual performance out without jeopardizing other people's individual performances, which is why it's a game of chess and so much fun. But he came out and played with a ton of energy. But I remember thinking at the beginning of the fourth quarter that Leicester needed to be careful. It was about after the first minute, that Leicester need to be careful here, because that game was won at the beginning of the fourth quarter. And at that point, they didn't have Mackenzie in the game. He hadn't put Russell in the game the whole second half, so he doesn't trust him enough in that situation. And they were offensively stagnant. Bowman was in the game. It was his first. He hadn't played much. I think he played on Friday night a little bit, but he hasn't played much. And often, and Thomas was struggling a bit. And I remember thinking, they need to keep scoring here. If they win the first 3 minutes of the fourth quarter, that game is done. It's a 17-point game. And they didn't. And that allowed Cheshire to build up that kind of head of steam that they have in that building. And it's Rye leads it. Rye always at the fourth quarter. Rideau's doing all his little stuff and putting his hands in and getting stuff here. And then Rye's the guy who's got the ball in his hands a lot of the time, and he's probing and attacking and getting fouled and putting him under pressure. Then they got them in the penalty, and after about 3.5 minutes, and then Leicester basically they struggled to score. Which they struggle to create good looks, which I think is my major concern with the lineups that they've got, is so far as teams are really into their face, you know, are they going to be able to create for each other? And then mentally they broke down in relation to their defense, and they fouled. And Rob's teams have always been the best in the league and not fouling. And this team is nowhere near that at the moment. And they gave up probably 4 or 5 unnecessary fouls in the penalty, which gave Cheshire cheap points.
Yeah, even though they were shooting badly from the free throw line. But I'm just looking at it, because I think how many fouls did Leicester have in the end? 19. And I'm sure they said it was only like 5 late in the third quarter or something.
Yeah, well, it was the type of fouls that you give up end of the shot clock, maybe after offensive rebound, all that stuff, you know.
There were even a few where off a defensive rebound, there were
that's exactly what I meant. I'm wrong. Defensive rebound, you're letting them walk 90 feet to shoot foul shots. And it becomes draining. And for a team that's not winning, or a team that's been through its fair share of
turbulence,
turbulent, good word, thank you, then that becomes demoralizing, you know. And against Cheshire's the opposite of that. Their tide is rising. They're used to, particularly in that building, it's their only game this week. And so they were able to kind of just keep making plays. And eventually it was kind of having Holden being able to run, you know, take his man, take Walker off the dribble, throw it to Stevens in the corner. Made the 3. I think Leicester failed to rebound a couple of foul shots again, and that's we've seen in their games this season, where they've failed a few times to rebound foul shots. It's just little stuff that veterans do and that rookies don't do. You know,
well, the last game up there was offensive rebounds killed them in the last couple of minutes.
You know, and so it's just making all those little plays, and they're just not game hardened enough. I'm not BBL hardened enough at the moment. I mean, their front line is at the end of the game is basically Law, Edowu, and Thomas, and those guys are BBL rookies. You know, and I know that Cheshire have got some as well, but Cheshire have got a lot of guys, a lot of players, and a little bit more experience. And the other thing I'll say about Cheshire is that we are really, everybody is really sleeping on Chargewa. Chargewa is probably pound for pound their most important player, even more so than Ryan, because he can step out, he rebounds, he can go off the dribble, and he can finish, and he seems to be absolutely totally locked into it all. So he kind of a Swiss Army knife for them, and he's 6'9", and you don't see that kind of combination a lot of players. So he's not had much kind of love this year, but he's really one of the real consistent players. And Leicester just dropped away, unfortunately. They just didn't they weren't able to get offense. Yeah, they weren't able to get any offense. And against kind of what is a long and relatively physical Phoenix lineup. And you know, and if you're going to play in that gym, you've got to keep scoring. You're up 13, you have to keep scoring. You're going to have to, teams to go to Cheshire win are going to have to score 90. You're not going to slow them down on that scoring, because they're going to put up so many shots, they're going to get so much stuff in transition that eventually they're going to come at you. And it's how you withstand the run, and Leicester didn't withstand the run at all. So I think at one point it was 23-4.
I had 19-4, and then they scored the next 2, and then they got another 2, so that would be 23-4. Yeah,
because Holder, I checked the stats, and Holder was like plus 19 in 8 minutes. You know, and it's like, you know, that's the difference between winning and losing in this, you know, in this league. And outside of Plymouth and maybe Manchester, we haven't seen Manchester this week, obviously, or Plymouth actually. Every other game, you're going to have to be right until the end. And you might have to be right until the end with those teams.
Rideau, 7 of 14 shooting, 22 points, 10 rebounds, 8 assists. Shagwal, 15 points, 11 rebounds. Rye, 15 points. They missed 11 free throws as well. They're not a great free throw shooting team either, to be fair. Lowell, 24 points, 8 of 12 shooting, 5 of 7 from 3. Holmes, 16 points and 6 rebounds. Mackenzie, 14.
Yeah, I thought obviously Lowell showed, you know, that he's a really solid swingman in this league, and he has this kind of hitch in his shot, but it kind of seems to stabilize it, and it looks like it's going in. Rideau, for all the numbers you have, I think they don't actually value probably the one thing more than that, which is his swagger.
Yeah, he's definitely got a lot of swag.
He has a swag, you know, and I think that has an impact, you know. I'm sure that can make it just, even a couple of plays at the end, you know, you look back and there was one turnover at the end when Holmes went into the basket, and suddenly Rideau comes up with the ball.
The other way. It's like, what happened there?
I thought, what happened there? I had to rewind it 3 times to see that it's just Rideau's got his hand on the ball, and he has really substantial strength to be able to get it and just literally take it away from him. And even for all the steals he gets, there's probably 3 or 4 that he nearly gets. So yeah, he might be the litmus test. He might be that, you know, I think they can win without him playing well, but when he does play well, they're a real, you know, it's a real struggle. So I mean, they're a tough team to scout because they've got so many players, and they all play athletically, and they all kind of are comfortable within their role. Leicester just they need one more guy. They need one more guy. They need one more. I mean, see if they get him.
Right, so quick squiz through the table. London now 15-3, Cheshire 11-5, Caledonia 10-5, Sheffield now fourth with 9 wins and 7 losses, Newcastle 9-8, Bristol 9-9, Leicester 7-9, Surrey 6-11, Manchester 2 games in hand, but the other side of the line 4-11, and Plymouth 2-14.
Yeah. Oh well. Well, maybe we have some drama at the top.
Well, we'll see.
Spoiler, we won't.
Right, so I've not checked. I'm supposed to look at these things in advance, so I'll just waffle aimlessly for a second while I have a look. No, I think I'm back on next Sunday.
I feel most insulted if you take over my speciality and start waffling aimlessly.
Yeah. Although I'm doing the 4:30 game, so maybe it's possible to get back and
4:30. Is it 3, 4:30, and 6? Is it?
I'm guessing. Can't
wait. All right.
So, right, on that bombshell, we're going to wrap it up for this week. So have a great week, and we'll be back next week to do it all over again. Goodbye.